Well, we're back on our Hemi, folks. So I didn't want to bore everybody, but here's where we're at. Before we put the headers or anything on, we went ahead and put coolant in this thing. And I bought a pressure tester off of course, Amazon. And it had somewhat of a cantankerous, I had to fiddle with this thing for a while before it would seal. But we got it sealed. We pumped our coolant system up with our 50-50 coolant system, or 50-50 coolant dilution factor. It has not moved one bit. It's staying at 10 pounds. That's what I pumped it up to. So my old neighbor, retired mechanic back in Texas, had a great idea. He said, keep this thing pumped up, keep that coolant system pressurized, and go in and do your compression test and do your leak down test. I didn't want to make this a long, boring video going on each and every cylinder, but let me tell you where we're at. At the most, on leak down, I had probably maybe 10%, if that. It seemed like 10, maybe 12% on a few cylinders. I just couldn't see anything. I opened the dipstick up, we listened down the intake, the exhaust, nothing. What he said was if you do your leak down test, you're pressurizing that cylinder. If you've got something going on with the coolant circuit, then you could very likely, if you see the pressure going up on the coolant system, on the gauge, you would see it rise, was what his theory was. One way to troubleshoot. It did not rise one bit. It did not go down one bit. It stayed dead nuts at 10 psi. So like I said, I had about, at the most, I think one of them I might have had 12% leak down. Now let me tell you on the compression test. The compression test, all of these cylinders were right around anywhere from 205 to 210. However, these two cylinders here, which were the ones on the one side that had what I thought looked like obviously a head gasket failure or somehow coolant getting into the combustion chamber, I had 180 pounds on these two. Now, 180 pounds of compression. Now, obviously, that's still plenty to run well, but you guys tell me about the disparity. I'm thinking that the rings didn't quite seat as well as the other ones did, is what I'm thinking. But I'm thinking for what we're doing, if I can get this thing, if I can maintain that kind of compression and the leak down is still good, you guys tell me, is that still okay? Or does this require tearing the whole thing down and going with a new set of rings and rehoning this thing? You guys let me know on that. I'd like to know your opinion. But to me, mechanical integrity, we came in last week, we torqued this thing down and we torqued it down again just to make sure that we had maintained at 105 foot-pounds on those nuts that go into the head studs. So far, I don't have any coolant leak. I don't have anything going on. So now we're going to move forward. We're going to go ahead and I've got 16 brand new plugs. I'm going to put one new plug in each cylinder. The other plugs, they're all firing, but to save some of my plugs, I'm going to do that. We're going to move forward, getting the valve covers back on this thing, putting the headers on, and we're going to get this thing fired up, and we're going to see if we see any disparity like we did the last time when we had it on the stand and what ended up on the dyno. Learning moment on that is I should have not gone to the dyno with some plugs that were not quite as clean as the other ones. They just weren't as clean. As a matter of fact, they were pig rich. So that's what the test stands for, and I shouldn't let it pass test on the test stand. But we're gonna move forward here, and here we go. Well, folks, I got good news and bad news on my Hemi. Well, the good news is the test stand is doing its job, and this is why we have a test stand. Bad news is we still have an issue with the plugs, and it's not a head gasket issue. We got an oil control issue. Look at this plug. It's got oil on it. It's got oil. So number 2 and number 4 don't know if you can see it, but weird things going on here. They're wet. And number, I believe, let's see, number 7. Yeah, don't know if you can see it, but there's oil around it. Yeah, it's got oil. So it's down further deep. This thing's going to have to come all the way down, at least to the crank. We're going to have to pull the rods, pistons, obviously, and I believe we have an oil control issue. I had difficulty getting these low retention rings in with the ring compressor I had, and if I were to guess, I probably damaged some rings putting this thing in. I don't know. I don't go pounding on these things. Usually I use a sleeve, and I can just use my thumbs and usually get them started and just use I have a piston. It's a Teflon piston hammer, or whatever you want to call it, to install pistons and rod assemblies. But this one was extremely difficult with the sleeve that I had. So what's going to have to happen is this thing is going to have to come back down, unfortunately, and we're going to go down into look at these piston rings on this thing and see where we're at. And obviously I'll pull those out. I'll have to get new rod hardware because these are stretch type rod bolts. Oil pressure was great. We had great oil pressure. Now I'm going to tell you something else. It fired right up, ran crisp, ran great, but for whatever reason it started running worse and worse, and it started fouling plugs. I mean, and yes, I have two different. I just bought one set of cheap Champion plugs. Probably a bad idea to run two different style plugs in these things now to think about it. So it was just for testing purposes. You know, these plugs are not freaking cheap. 2 plugs per cylinder. So yeah, unfortunately, after hoping with the diagnosis with having really good leak down, we had good compression, except for these 2 cylinders here were lower. I can tell you this. Number 2 and number 8 did have lower compression, but with all the plugs pulled, they were at 100 and I think 80, and everything else was up around 210. So there was a disparity between 2 and 8, but it's got to come apart. I've never had an engine fight me as hard as this one has, but I'm not blaming the engine. I'm blaming me, self-induced. Several things, several mistakes that I've made. So, yeah, lucky me. Going to get to pull this thing all the way down to the crank. I guess we can check bearings and everything while we're there and see where we end up. But anyway, that's where we're at, folks. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. I mean, the engine, it sounds awesome, but there's an issue. And you can't tune an engine when you've got oil control problems hitting the plugs. You just can't tune it that way. So we're going to get this thing down, go all the way down to pull them out, and I will be sharing that with you guys. I'll probably come out here tomorrow and start on it. Right now, I think I'm done for the day. I think I'm going to have some wine. So everybody have a good day. Appreciate y'all following here. We're going to get it fixed. Don't worry. I am going to get it fixed. Like I said, throwing the kitchen sink at it. So it will be right. And once it's right on the test stand, then we go to the dyno. So please like, share, and subscribe. We're going to get there, folks. Y'all have a great day. Thanks, everybody.